Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast, Pharmacy Weekend Edition. I'm going to be running 75 miles with 7 of my friends from Des Moines Area Community College, so I will be out for Saturday, and then of course it's Mother's Day Sunday, so I wanted to get this recorded here on Friday, but probably release over the weekend. So let's go over what's going on in pharmacy. So first of all, TLDR Pharmacy, he has a great new blog post. Yes, you can still get a residency if you didn't match this year, and it's a story of someone who didn't match, and then he kind of took a look, and I don't want to say took a look inside, but kind of took a look at what he had as, and what he was maybe missing in terms of what residency would want, and goes through that story, and not to be the spoiler, but it works out. He gets the residency, and things are all right. But there were a couple of different things that he did, especially getting better at interviewing, and he talks about how to reapply. So for those of you that didn't match, there's probably going to be more residencies next year. I mean, over and above the 5,000. It looks like they're adding about 300 a year. And I think that's complete, total, PGY1 and PGY2. But it's going to get a little easier each year, and there's going to be a little bit more selection each year if they keep on this pace. So I definitely encourage you to keep at it and not to quit if that's something that you want to do. Looking at the mothership and the Pharmacy Podcast Network, started off Monday with Advanced Education in Pharmacogenomics, and that was talking about a master's degree at Manchester University, which is in, I want to say, North Manchester, Indiana. So it's not a British degree, it's not in the UK, but that's something that you could check out. And then it's not available yet, but Brandon Welch, who is part of APPA, wrote a book called the PBM Mafia, and he said that's going to come out soon. But basically going behind the scenes and saying, this is what's going on with the PBMs, this is why patients' medications are so expensive, and the pharmacist is getting reimbursed X, but then there's this huge number sometimes with Y. So again, I haven't read the book. It's not something you can get on Amazon, but continue to watch out for that. And then motivational interviewing with the Fit Pharmacist came out on Thursday. Again, he's always very positive. I always feel a little bit better after any one of his episodes. Looking at Core Consult RX, they had to re-record one. I think they lost it. But they're up to 8 podcast episodes, and it's at coreconsultrx.com/podcast. Helix Talk had the pulmonary embolism podcast episode, I want to say a week ago. I don't know if Hillary did this on purpose, but in time for Mother's Day weekend, she talked to Pharmacist Moms Group starter Susie Solomon, who was on the Pharmacy Podcast Network. But I would definitely check that out. And again, for all of you moms that have to work Sunday, hopefully our industry is moving towards something that's a bit more remote, where some of the things that we can do at home, and we're not going to have to pull these Sundays where dads miss Father's Day, moms miss Mother's Day, and things like that. RX Radio had 2 episodes this week. The first one I talked about in my last episode, which was about the pharmacist oversupply, and really everyone's trying to get things through to get this provider status done, and definitely the associations are doing everything they can, and it's just really, really tough, because what you have are all these competing healthcare providers, and we're trying to say, this is our niche, this is their niche. We're not trying to step on anyone's toes, but we're also trying to show our value at the same time. But just as we are trying to say, okay, well, eventually we're going to be in doctors' offices, and I want to say the labor. I can't remember what the labor department is, but the Department of maybe the Department of Labor had in there that the number of pharmacists in physicians' offices is going to increase. But what I don't think we ever talk about, and maybe this is something to talk about, is that if you're a physician group and you have a choice of adding a pharmacist or adding a PA or adding a nurse practitioner, the pharmacist can't prescribe yet. It can in some areas, but that's the big thing, I think, where if we could prescribe some things, then it would be a lot easier for us to be part of the regular flow. But right now, what I'm hearing is that as pharmacists, we're getting in for like a day a week, a consistent day a week. And then it's really up to us to show, okay, well, this is what I do, and then this is how I fit into the workflow and so forth. Nurses have worked with doctors for millennia, and then physician assistant, that profession clearly says, physician and physician assistant work together. So as pharmacists, we'd always been separate. We'd always been in a completely different building. And now we are, trying to work to change that, especially with this outcomes-based model of healthcare. So I think it is going to take time. But again, I think that that's where our struggle is going to be, because, the reason most schools cite as we're opening a new school because of the need for pharmacists. Well, what's really happening, or the real need, is that if there was no need for new schools, then no one would apply. No one would go to these new schools. But what's happening is that people are going to these schools, and what's going to happen, I believe, is that they're going to start shrinking. And what students are saying is that I prefer to go to a school that's closer to me, maybe even that I can stay at home or live at home during school. And going from 75 to 150, it makes it a lot easier for you to be near one. Now, when you get into states like Tennessee, where you have like all the schools bunched together, it's kind of hard to say, well, now you really have to have a big selection. I don't know. So it's really hard for me to justify the continued opening of more schools. But, I mean, the people that benefit are definitely the students who are wanting a choice when they become pharmacy students, but students later lose out because now the supply is getting to be higher and higher, or more and more. Higher wouldn't be the right word. But anyway, that's something we can talk about for a long time. Then RX Radio put up another episode, Baseball's Pharmacist, so this was a really cool episode. I think you'll enjoy. And my wife is a huge St. Louis Cardinals fan, and I am a St. Louis Cardinals fan by marriage. And I, of course, came from Baltimore with the Orioles, but I think you'll really like that. It was just something completely different. And then if you want to check him out, it's STL Cup of Joe on Twitter. Just a very cool interview. Your Financial Pharmacist guys, I haven't really updated on them in a while, but there are just some that they do that's so money intensive that I'm just like, no, I don't. I've already got insurance, or I've already got this. But there are a couple they've done recently that really speak to my audience. My audience, certainly a large percentage of you are students. So the 5 big mistakes pharmacists make with their student loans, they really take the time to go through each of the mistakes, and they're being very, very transparent, talking about their own mistakes. They're not saying, see, don't do this, do that. They just said, I did this, I should have done that. And the order of loss can be in the hundreds of thousands, generally the tens of thousands, but it can get pretty big if you don't know how to do what you need to do, especially when it comes to deferment, forbearance, forgiveness. Those things are so complicated, require so many kind of different little tweaks to it. The next one was leveraging opportunities during your student, and I think it's really hard to feel that you have to make more and more money, because the pressure of student loans, as I've listened to their podcast for now almost their 50 episodes, is that it's not there. it's just completely absent when you're in school. Like, there's this money back there and you owe it, but it doesn't impact your life at all. It's just this debt that you have back there. And until you get out, it's just not a big deal. But as the student loans have grown, we've crossed that magical 20%, where if your student loans are 20% of your income, as incomes are coming down, you're going to see that there's this crossover where now you are eligible for forbearance. And it's clear that many pharmacists are taking this route, or some kind of deferment route, or some kind of non-traditional 10-year route, because the average pharmacist pays off their loans, and I want to say it was 14 to 15 years, so something like that. But it was really, really enlightening. And then the newest episode came out yesterday, I think, best practices for car buying, and they talked to the Facebook group and asked us, what we thought, and maybe I'll start doing some of those episodes later in the summer. I think through maybe the middle of May, I'll keep with the interviews, and then I have APPE students in late June, but I think somewhere in the middle, I'm going to start recording some episodes just talking about my thoughts on money and how I kind of built to where I am, where, I just don't have any debt. I don't have any consumer debt. I don't have any car debt. We only have the mortgage because it makes sense to have the mortgage, but we have enough to pay it off if we wanted to. Why we use 2 houses instead of 1. So we split. We have the home that we're in, but instead of living in the mega mansion, we've got a rental, which if you add them up, it's like, really, really nice house. But we decided to live in a bit of a smaller house and rent out the other one so that when, time comes, everything's paid off and we have a much bigger house, and someone who's renting is helping us do that. And they're super nice. My tenants are amazing. Found a new pharmacist on YouTube. She has a little over 10,000 subscribers as well. So I have about 11,000. Paul Tran, 10,000. And Kelsey Douglas, who I want to talk about, also has 10,000. And the video I want to talk about is my advice to future pharmacy students. She's really into fitness, has some videos about her working out, and she's super, super strong. But I would really check that one out. I think there were 37,000 views on that. And it's my advice to future pharmacy students. Pharmacy Talk by Kelsey Douglas. Kevin Yee, I don't know if I mentioned this, but he had 2 episodes. One, how someone got in after 10 years of trying, and then one, how someone almost got kicked out of pharmacy school. And that was a live stream, and I ended up coming to the live stream really late. I want to say it was like the last 2 or 3 minutes, so I didn't even post on there. But I definitely recommend Kevin Yee. He's always got great stuff. He's always engaging. Brian Fung had a Ask Me Anything episode. I want to say it was like 5 days ago. And then it was Corinne and Dennis, but it was on his channel. And then nothing new from Paul Tran. So again, I always welcome people that have interesting stories, and whether you want me to interview you or if you want to interview someone and you're maybe a micropreneur, so making under $100,000 with your side hustle or something like that, I'm happy to have you on. So just give me an email or get in touch with me on Facebook Messenger at TonyFarmD1. And happy Mother's Day to all the moms, and I will see you guys next weekend.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.